Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a quick look at and of course installing the Airaid cold air dam intake with the Red SynthaMax Dry Filter, available for the 11 to 20, 3.6, 5.7 Hemi, and 6.4 Hemi Challenger. You should be checking this out if you're looking for a hassle-free dry filter replacement to your factory paper element filter, but you don't want to spend all of that money, about 400, 500 bucks, on a full cold air intake replacement. This guy here is the cold air dam intake, which is just your filter and airbox assembly with some tubing connecting to the rest of your factory assembly. This guy here is the Red SynthaMax option from Airaid, and if you're not familiar with Airaid, you must be living under a rock because they're one of these staples. They're a household name in filter and cold air intake technology in the category. Airaid's got some of the highest quality options out there, and their filter is definitely exemplary of that. This guy here, being the Red SynthaMax Dry Filter, is great for filtering out particles that you don't want getting into the engine, but it's also going to be a lot better for airflow when compared to your factory paper element. I'll break down some of the more details on that, comparing it to an oiled filter later on, taking a look at it next to the stock option. Know that this guy here is going to be washable and reusable. You're just going to use some pressurized air to clean off all the dirt and dust. It does not require any re-oiling, so the maintenance is going to be a lot less of a hassle and a lot less frequent. Now, if you're located in dry climate areas there, this is going to be the one you probably want to go toward if you're looking to keep it a little bit lighter on the maintenance side. Now, the tubing here is all high quality plastic, making sure it's good with heat dissipation. The heat shield here is not a completely closed air box. If you are looking for one, there are some other options out there in the category. This is going to use some aluminum shielding on the sides with some really high quality weather stripping to seal in underneath the hood to block out some engine bay heat. This whole thing here bolts right up without needing any tunes, so right out of the box, throw it on, you can reap all the benefits. Definitely expect a small bump in horsepower and torque due to the increased airflow. You can also expect just a better breathing engine, a small throttle response and acceleration gain, and you might even get a little bit more of an aggressive engine noise. Now, this guy comes in right around 250 bucks, about roughly half the price of a full cold air intake replacement, so this is definitely a more budget-friendly option for guys looking for just a simple air filter upgrade. The entire install, of course, gets 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Anybody can tackle this with about 30 minutes or less in the driveway at home with very simple hand tools. I'll show you the entire process start to finish. What do you say we get started? All right, tools used in this install include an impact gun and/or a ratchet, extension, 5/32 hex socket or Allen key, 5mm hex socket or Allen key, 8 and 10mm deep sockets, 5/16 wrench, flathead and Phillips head screwdrivers, and/or a Phillips head socket. Now, because we don't have to remove the entire factory airbox and the tubing here, the uninstall is going to be fairly simple. We're going to start here with our flathead screwdriver, and we're going to loosen up this clamp. Then we'll pop off our breather hose and then unscrew the top portion of the airbox lid. All right, so now you can head to the back of this airbox lid, and we're going to disconnect this PCV line. All right, so now you can grab a Phillips head screwdriver and remove the 3 Phillips head screws holding on the perimeter of the top lid here. Now, I've got a Phillips head bit on my impact gun just to make things a little bit easier. All right, so now we can just disconnect the tubing and lift up on the lid and set it aside. Now, from there, you can also pick up your filter and set that aside. Grab your 8mm socket and remove this bolt, then we'll pull the bottom portion of the airbox out along with the clip underneath of it. All right, so you can just lift to disconnect. You want to make sure this rubber grommet is still in there. And then finally, you can grab a flathead screwdriver and remove this speed nut clip. All right, so we finally got our factory filter and top airbox lid off of our 5.7 behind me, and it's on the table next to our Airaid SynthaMax Dry Filter assembly. Let's talk about some similarities and differences. And really the only similarity is the fact that they're both dry filters. Your factory filter is a dry paper element filter, which is very standard for manufacturers off the factory line. It's efficient in filtering out particles that you don't want getting into your engine, but it's not really optimized for the best airflow. Swapping over to a 360-degree conical filter option from Airaid is going to do the trick when it comes to increasing horsepower and torque and just getting a better overall breathing engine. This is a synthetic dry cotton gauze media. The cotton gauze is going to be a little bit more open as far as letting airflow in compared to a paper element option, which is going to make it better for that airflow. And the fact that it's a 360 degree instead of a flat paper element is going to help give you a little bit more volume of airflow coming in. Pair that with your open mouth filter adapter there, and you can definitely see an increase in velocity. Now, as far as filtering out particles that you don't want getting into your engine bay, the dry filter is just typically known to be a little bit better when doing so. The dry filter, when compared to an oiled filter, requires a lot less maintenance to get the job done. If you're located in a dry climate area, somewhere like Arizona or Utah, you see a lot of dust and particles in the air. An oiled filter would get clogged up a little bit more often and require more maintenance in order to keep it free flowing as far as airflow without getting clogged down. Your dry filter is going to be a little bit more forgiving when it comes to those climate areas. Oiled filters are great for letting airflow in. They have a little bit more of an open media. The dry filters have a little bit more of a closed media because it doesn't require oiling. So there's pros and cons to each kit. This one here should definitely be looked at if you're looking for a little bit less maintenance heavy of an air intake filter, one that you can clean off with simply pressurized air without having to wash it and re-oil it. And if you're located in a dry climate area, looking to make sure that this isn't going to get clogged down by all the dust in the air. The rest of your kit here, you have a heat shield that isn't completely closed. It's going to be a semi-closed heat shield that uses weather stripping to trap in the air underneath of that hood and block out engine bay heat. If you're looking for something that is a completely closed air box, you can spend a little bit more money in the category to do so, but I think this is definitely going to be sufficient for what it is here. The rest of the tubing is a cross-linked polyethylene material. It's a real thick, hard plastic, good for heat dissipation, and it's got all new couplers here that you don't see on the table that'll make sure there's no air leaks. Now, your factory air box here is completely closed, so there's a trade-off there. At the end of the day, this is going to be a huge upgrade in the airflow department. So at this point, we're going to toss off the factory stuff. We don't have to transfer anything over from there. We're going to start assembling a few of these components on the table and then head back on under the hood. All right, so next step here, we're going to assemble our heat shield. Now, as you can see, this circular portion here is going to be your front panel, and this section is going to be your rear panel. Now, the rear panel is going to install on the side just like this. So the tab that comes up, install the rear panel directly to the right of it. You're going to use their small Phillips head screws and washers to go right through this slot here, and then grab the small 8 or 5/16 nuts, and you're going to thread that on from the back. All right, and then grab your wrench and your Phillips head and tighten them down. And it is slotted, so you can, before tightening it down, you can slide it forward and backward here to align it where you need it to be. Obviously, this isn't required, but Airaid gives you some nice decals, so I like to put it right up here in the corner there. And then in some states, it's even illegal to not have the carb certification sticker, so I'm just going to peel that guy off and put this a little bit more discreetly down here in the corner. All right, so now we can move on. All right, so next we're going to install our adapter here for the filter. Now, the big open mouth section is going to be on the inside of the airbox here. So you want to line up these 3 threaded holes to the 3 holes drilled in this open circle. Grab your hex screws along with the washers and put them through the outside going in. Grab your 5/32 hex socket or your Allen key and tighten these down. All right, so now turn it on its side, and this double curved corner here, we're going to install a weather stripping piece on, and on the bottom flat portion, we'll install the same thing. All right, it's very simple. It slides right on in there through the little slit in the middle. Just like that. And then bottom here. All right, so now we can head under the hood. We're gonna go back to this rubber grommet here that we left on from the factory, pop that guy off and replace it with the one included in the kit. This guy here in the kit has threading on the inside, and we'll be able to bolt down the entire assembly later on when we start installing that. Now you can grab your 10mm socket and remove this side fender bolt. All right, that's gonna get reused as well. So now you can drop your whole heat shield assembly down into place, making sure that filter adapter is on the same side as your factory tubing. Slide the bottom portion in there on the outside toward the driver's side of the ABS lines at the bottom. Line up this tab with that factory 8mm slot. Line up this tab with the grommet we just installed in the wheel well. Finally, this tab over here is going to be lining up where this factory 10mm was, so we can put that back through now. Now for the center bolt where that grommet is that we just installed in the wheel well, you're going to take the hex screw included in the kit along with the washer, place it all the way through, and thread it into the threading in that grommet. All right, so now we can grab our socket and tighten that down. Now for this, you can use your hex socket or your Allen key. Now this tab here next to our rad support, we're going to slide underneath of that factory tab. Just rotate that guy in. This guy has threading on the bottom of it. Grab your hex bolt included in the kit. It's one of the same ones we use for this filter adapter. We're going to thread this guy on. Grab your 5/32 hex socket again and tighten it down. All right, so now this assembly here came pre-assembled out of our box, but if yours did not, let me quickly explain what's going on with it. So we have a coupler on the inlet side that's going to connect to our filter adapter here. Then we have another piece of plastic tubing that'll connect to the factory tubing with that flex pipe. Now, depending on your model vehicle and what engine you have in here, you'll use a different adapter. So we have a 5.7, so we're using the straight option, but if you have a V6, you'll use one that has a little bit of an angle to it. On this side, we have a grommet in the adapter, then we have our adapter. Now, depending on your model, you might be using the straight adapter or you might be using a 90-degree elbow. So that's something to keep in mind. And we have the 5.7, so we're using the straight option. Then you have your tubing, and then another adapter on the end that'll connect to your factory pipe that we uninstalled earlier. So pretty simple, straightforward assembly. Yours may not look like this. It may look like a little bit different depending on your V6 model. So let's put this guy into place. The coupler goes to the adapter. The plastic goes to your factory tubing. You can see this tab here on the factory coupler. Attach that to the little indent on our new tubing. Kind of aligned just like that. All right, so now before we connect our tubing, slide that onto your hose, connect the fittings. Now you can clamp up that hose connector. All right. Now you can grab your flathead or your socket and tighten down the clamps. Now we can drop our filter into place. Now it is side specific as far as its orientation. So if you look and see this chrome line here in the media, that's gonna go on the bottom. All right, slide that guy on and now we can tighten it down. So now we can install our final step, our weather stripping. This will give you a good seal underneath of the hood. So we're gonna start here at the end and it just pushes back into place similar to our other ones that were a lot smaller. All right, we can work our way over all around the perimeter. All right, and there you have it. At that point, you're good to go. Well, that's gonna wrap up my review and install for the Airaid cold air dam intake with the Red SynthaMax Dry Filter for 11 to 20 3.6 V6, 5.7 Hemi, and 6.4 Hemi Challengers. You should get yours right here at AmericanMuscle.com.